Electric vehicles are coming, like it or not. Europe and California have passed legislation that will prohibit the sale of all new internal combustion vehicles by 2035. Some individual nations have gone with 2030 instead, and many automakers are on board with that. To be clear, the sale and registration of used gasoline vehicles will still be allowed. Will this law apply to motorcycles as well? This is unclear as the details are still being ironed out, which leaves motorcycle manufacturers in long-term planning limbo, though they are certainly aware of which way the wind is blowing. Jochen Zeist, the CEO of Harley-Davidson, recently stated that he expects that at some point all Harleys will be electric, a statement that didn't go over well with the Harley faithful. And while some may be tempted to argue that internal combustion dinosaurs are blocking the path to a cleaner and healthier future for the planet, motorcycles are not cars, and there is compelling evidence to suggest that electric motorcycles, especially the large ones that Westerners ride recreationally, may actually produce more lifetime carbon emissions than their gasoline counterparts. How? Stay tuned for the details, and if you like this content, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with folks who may find it interesting. Elon Musk was once asked if Tesla would manufacture electric motorcycles and said that he had enough on his plate already. And while Zero Motorcycles has been around for a while and other brands are popping up, they don't enjoy the same popularity as electric cars, which have achieved a decent level of adoption. The reasons for this are many, but the main ones are range, price, weight, and visceral appeal. E-cars can carry a lot of batteries in their floor, and some have achieved decent range. Motorcycles have limited room for a battery, and because they have to keep their weight down, and because they are far less aerodynamic than cars per unit of frontal area, have far less range. Regardless of manufacturer claims, which are wildly exaggerated for all electric vehicles, few if any can reach 100 miles or 160 kilometers in real-world riding. Additionally, e-vehicles are far more expensive to manufacture, and that cost is passed down to the consumer. Only Tesla is actually making a profit on each car sold. Rivian is losing money on each unit, and Ford just admitted that they don't expect to turn a profit on their electric vehicles until 2026 despite the hefty price of both companies' machines. And since the weight of the lithium batteries makes e-motorcycles sluggish to transition from side to side, no electric street bike can rail corners like a Ducati Panigale V4, not even close. Finally, they just don't sound good. You may find it silly, but motorcyclists like deep rumbly V-twins, screaming inline fours, and clackety dry clutches. They like the mechanics and feel of shifting to keep an engine in the power band and wind up a motor. The sound of electric motors and lack of gearboxes just does not compare. So what, you might say? Aren't e-vehicles cleaner than gasoline ones? In the case of cars, the answer is probably, though a lot depends on where they're being charged and who is doing the measuring. Let me break this down. The extraction of materials like lithium for the batteries used in electric vehicles is expensive and dirty and emits carbon dioxide, which makes e-vehicles higher emitting before they hit the road. Furthermore, the disposal and recycling of used batteries is also more energy intensive than the scrapping of gasoline vehicles. Since e-vehicles emit more carbon dioxide during their manufacture and disposal, they have to make up for that by lower emissions during their lifetimes. In other words, they have to drive a certain number of kilometers before they break even, but that number varies depending on how the electricity that charges them is generated. If you live in Norway, where almost all electricity comes from renewable hydroelectric power, you break even faster. If you're in China or Poland, which still rely on coal power plants, the electricity which charges your bike or car is generating a lot of carbon dioxide.
How dare you!
Additionally, we can't even agree on how to measure the lifetime emissions. According to Vijay Subramanian from research group IHS Markit, the break-even point comes somewhere around 24,000 to 32,000 kilometers depending on where the electricity is coming from. On the other hand, University of Liège researcher Damien Erst estimates the break-even point to be somewhere between 67 and 151,000 kilometers on comparable vehicles. That's a very wide spread of possible mileage requirements, and while we can probably agree that the average car will exceed even the highest of those numbers, it is very debatable whether the average motorcycle will. Motorcyclists, especially recreational ones like most in North America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and other rich nations, ride a lot less than they drive their cars, less than 5,000 kilometers for the average motorcyclist compared to 20,000 kilometers for the average car. Yes, there is the iron butt crowd of Goldwing and BMW riders that proudly point to odometers reading over 200,000 or 300,000 kilometers, but that's a tiny minority of bikers. And e-motorcycles are not suited for long distance riding anyways. If you've ever ridden across the United States or Canada, you've noticed that some of the less populated places out west will have long stretches between gas stations. If you have a small tank, you can carry an extra bottle of gasoline, but you can't fill that up with electrons. Regardless, the vast majority of motorcyclists ride once or twice a week and generally not that far. How many 20-year-old bikes do you see in the classifieds with ultra-low mileage? So what happens if this legislation ends up governing all motorcycles as well as cars? You'll get a ton of bikes sitting in garages, their lithium batteries deteriorating over time, which end up producing more lifetime carbon dioxide by the time they are scrapped than comparable gasoline motorcycles because they weren't ridden enough to make up the difference. That's why one-size-fits-all legislation, which does not look at problems in a nuanced way, can end up doing more harm than good. Unfortunately, nuance does not win elections and the average voter won't bother looking into details. So, am I an electric hater? Definitely not. I've reviewed several e-bicycles on this channel, have enjoyed them all, and I think electric power has a place on the roads. However, it is best suited for limited uses in motorcycles. Big touring bikes, cruisers, and ADV sport and naked bikes are not good candidates for electric power. In small city commuters, scooters, and e-bicycles, electric power makes sense as lack of range is not as great an issue. These vehicles are quiet, clean, and have great power characteristics for stop-and-go city riding, with their range sometimes even being extended by regenerative braking. And one other place where e-motorcycles can make a positive impact is in dirt riding. There's a new generation of e-dirt bikes coming out, from the smallish, almost mountain bike-like Sur-Ron X to the full-size and insane Varg Stark. This bike is supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, which I think can save off-roading in many places. Many of my commenters have complained that their country or state has banned dirt bikes and closed trails, and a lot of that may be the result of the noise and pollution open-pipe dirt bikes make. Could e-dirt bikes turn the tide in this regard? Maybe. It's worth a try. I enjoy trail riding and wouldn't want to live somewhere where it was banned. I have to say, as it stands now, if I were to go shopping for a purely off-road enduro, I might consider a Sur-Ron Ultra B. At $8,000 Canadian, it's actually affordable and looks like a lot of fun. What I wouldn't consider is an electric motorcycle as my only bike. Too many trade-offs, range and lack of infrastructure around where I live being the biggest. So will these laws eventually kill road motorcycling? No more sport tours, baggers, adventure sport, and naked bikes? If they're applied in a ham-fisted way, they probably will. I don't see most of today's motorcyclists wanting to be spending half an hour at a charging station for every 100 kilometers ridden. Hopefully, cooler heads prevail and motorcycles are exempted until batteries are more energy dense and more quickly charged. Bottom line, if you're getting an electric motorcycle, you better be a high mileage rider. If all it does is sit in your garage, it's worse for the environment than a gas one. I am amazed by the exponentially growing technology curve, and am confident that humanity will be able to solve its problems with innovation, and the help of our future AI overlords. However, the innovation has to be applied in a sensible manner, and banning all gas bikes by 2035 does not seem sensible. What do you think of these trends? Agree? Disagree? Will you keep your gas bike forever as long as it's grandfathered in? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below and ride safe.